And I can click out of this once that gets going, right?
I think so. I've never actually done that. I just thought the school board meeting had 590.
Oh, wow. Wow.
All
Okay,
right, are
Madam
we
Chair,
set?
we are ready to go.
Okay, we're all set. Thanks, everybody, for your patience. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. The records show that all members are present. Do I have a motion to, well, before we approve tonight's meeting agenda, I guess I'll add that we did add DASA to item 11G as one of our board reports this evening. It wasn't on the agenda that was published on Friday, so if anyone downloaded it Friday, we've added it since then. Isn't it? Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda with that addition?
Depica motion.
Any other discussion? Motion by Depa, second by Jenny. No other discussion. We'll move to a roll call vote.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Ms. Siegwin,
Aye.
Mr. Gierke,
Aye.
Ms. Roser,
Aye.
Ms. Deppa,
Aye.
Mr. Black,
Aye.
Ms. Rosno.
Aye.
All right, we have an approved agenda. First item on tonight's agenda, as always, is our work session. We've got a pretty packed agenda from a work session standpoint, so hopefully we can get through it all in time. The first item are some high school items. The first item is a proposed dance team trip.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We do have Ryan Toole and Coach Melissa Cook, who was on the meeting, so I will turn that over to you two to kind of go through your proposed extended field trip request.
Thanks for having us. As you know, if we do an overnight trip that needs to be approved by the board, we didn't have that come up this year. wasn't on the table. But in 2019, the dance group did take this trip, and they would like to be able to resume doing that again. And I'll let Melissa go from here to fill in some of the details.
Yeah, as Ryan said, we were able to go in 2019. The trip was fantastic. It was a great experience. And we, like Ryan said, we would really hope for the opportunity to get to go again. I know that we are still in a pandemic and a lot of decisions and a lot of thought needs to go into it. So I totally understand that, but I will just go through unless you guys have another way you want to go through it. I don't know if it was shared, Ryan or Matt, my Google Doc with board members, or if they all have seen it.
Yep,
we
they
have
have it.
Okay, perfect. So I'm not going to read it all then word for word, but the proposed trip dates are June 27th through the 30th. It is at Buena Vista University in Storm Lake, Iowa. I think the first year we went, we took around 18 dancers. My thing this year is we won't go with less than 20. And it's just for Kicks High School Dance Camp. They learn all sorts of things from technique. They can do different styles that we don't usually do in winter season, from pom, contemporary, hip hop. And they offer classes for beginner, intermediate, and elite. We were given $2,000 from the Loretta Lions to help us fund our travel. Usually we go with Stulky Bus. If this is approved, Ryan and I would work with them to work out those details. Cost for students, $416. They get around 8 to 10 hours of instruction a day. Same goes, that's the same price for coaches as well. 3 coaches plan to attend. Myself, Carly Linden, she is a staff member and coach at Delano High School. The third is still to be determined. I guess, yeah, I don't know, since you guys have all read this, do you guys have any questions for me? I did reach out to the Just for Kicks coordinator because it is in a different state, just to kind of see what their protocols are there right now with COVID-19. They do not require masks in Iowa at this time. The college, however, does. And on there, it says they have a capacity limit of 50%. And like I said, I know there's other options to go to Brainerd, but that is a very, very large camp. And the volume of this was a lot smaller in 2019. I anticipate it'll be a lot smaller again this year due to COVID. And like I said, I'm willing to enforce expectations that the school district has. Our girls are used to dancing in masks, so I don't see that as being an issue for them if you allow us to attend. Ryan, any gaps you want to fill in? That was just a quick overview.
I just add that I did reach out to the high school league if they had guidance about summer items like this. At this point, they really didn't. They said summer things are typically local control and just kind of referred back to MDH. I did talk to Tina Pryor, our district nurse. She thought that there weren't restrictions on camp or that camps can be allowed. She suggested if this went forward, that we have some kind of waiver in there explaining to parents, that like they have with the upcoming field trips, if a student did test positive, that would likely mean that the entire group would be quarantined, something like that to go for.
Do we have in this document, or do we have a separate document where you have parents sign off a waiver just to give permission to go to the camp?
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Ryan. This is your question.
Well, I guess that's what I'm suggesting, that we have that, we put a waiver in place for those parents to sign off.
Yeah, we should have a written document to make sure that parents say, yes, I, so-and-so mom and dad give permission for my daughter to attend this camp. So we have that kind of just a permission form, just like we have for other trips, even within state or within our area.
And you said you wouldn't go with fewer than 20, is that what I heard?
Correct, yes. We're anticipating 40 girls this year coming up on our team. So, and I know a lot of them really want to go. So I really don't think we'll have a problem reaching 20.
Okay.
Melissa, you guys gonna fundraise for this?
We don't. We did the first year, but quite honestly, a lot of girls did not need it. They know the cost of this camp going in. And we do have coaches staying back. So in 2019, those girls were able to stay back and continue their summer training with Coach Heather, which is probably going to be the plan this year. So just because they're not attending camp, they're still going to have the opportunity to continue their summer sessions with another coach.
Okay, thanks.
One unique thing with the high school league is they really can't be funded with fundraising or by boosters for summer camps. So kids or parents are expected to pay for their own camp.
Has that always been in place?
It's been in place the last few years. I'm not sure at what point that started.
I think anything summer outside of the actual calendar school year has been on parents.
Just for high school?
For high school, the exception would be, for example, if we moved the China trip to just right after school, that was still allowable to be fundraised. But that's through the state high school. That's not through the state high school league.
Okay. Any other questions for either Melissa or Ryan?
We'll need to get a signature from the principal. We can start this with the signature. But what we're actually going to do is we'll start it with the principal. This is not on the agenda for this evening. It'll be work session and we'll approve it at our regular May school board meeting. I believe that still meets, Melissa, your time frame of knowing by June 1st.
Yep.
So it'll be approved at the May school board meeting.
Which would be the 24th. Okay, so that gives them about a week to register. So that would be good.
Do you want it done sooner?
If possible, but I understand, believe me.
We potentially, Madam Chair, could add this
Add
to
it
the
to the
special
12th.
school board meeting scheduled for the 12th of May.
Yep, let's do that.
Okay, Paul, let's make a note of that, please, that we'll put the extended field trip request for the dance team for the Delano High School to be on the special school board meeting on May 12th.
Yep, got it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, folks.
Thank
Have a good
you.
evening.
You too.
All right, student handbook. High
Okay.
school student handbook, yeah.
The high school student handbook, Mr. Voigt is here, so I will turn it over to Mr. Voigt to present his information. Just so you know, Barry, the summary of changes and the actual red line version of the handbook has been linked to the work session list of topics, so board members do have access to that.
And I'm going to turn it over to intern Laura Voigt.
Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, we're here this evening to present the high school handbook changes for the 2021 school year. Linked to the work session agenda is the full handbook. The changes are in red. Those are the additions. The strike through are the deletions. And today we're going to talk about some of the substantive changes. It's important to know that the site-based leadership team has looked at this for about 2 months now. As well as we've had additional staff meetings, and student reps from student council were also included in this process. The first area that we are going to look at, you will notice the board policies, and throughout the handbook, the board policies as well as the registration information are now linked in the handbook and the appendix. And this is so that we limit the number of pages and allow for one location for information rather than multiple locations for the same information. By having all of this information in one area, we're able to make sure that the information is accurately updated rather than trying to find it in multiple locations. The next area that I'm going to talk about tonight, the grading system, it was updated to reflect the changes that were implemented this year to reinforce learning. This included having summative assessments at 85% of the grade and formative assessments be 15% of the final grade. This change also allows for at least one opportunity to retake summative assessments for full credit. The next change was in student clubs, and this implemented a 6-step process to ensure consistency and fairness in access. Information is attached on the link in the handbook labeled Student Club Manual. Until now, there has not been a process for approving student clubs. The next change is the volunteers and visitors, and this section has been reworked to be more consistent with other buildings in the district. Information has been included on the definition of visitors and volunteering and the school process, as well as when parents and others can visit. Our next change is the individual student program, and this was formerly the continuous progress program. The strict procedures have been removed, allowing for administrative flexibility, which will provide students continued opportunities for learning throughout the period of the consequence. The dress code has also been updated to provide hats and hoods. This might not seem like a substantial change, but the discussion from staff would indicate otherwise. And from there, we're in the area of technology, and the handbook outlines expectations for school-issued devices, including Chromebooks, that they should be fully charged and cased while not in use at school. There will likely be a Chromebook addendum that will include care, use, and insurance in the future. Also, we wanted to let the board know we've been told that students may appear this evening to advocate for carrying backpacks during the school day. This year, we have allowed this due to COVID concerns. Making this change permanent was discussed, but due to safety concerns, it was determined that we'll be returning to our pre-COVID normal plan for backpacks, which is that they are not allowed. So that concludes our review of the substantive changes. If you have any questions about these or any of the substantive changes, we'll be able to answer those for you.
guess, and with knowing that the students are coming in and what they're going to be talking about, why do we feel that it's not allowed, and what was kind of some of the discussion that went into that, just to prepare me for why we wouldn't have backpacks?
So we have talked about this a few different previous years. We had started talking about it due to safety and the amount of stuff that was left in the backpacks. We have also talked about the fact that it can be a tripping hazard. We have a lot of backpacks that are different sizes. They can be all over the place. They also have the webbing straps on them that can be easily tripped over. So those were some of the concern areas that we had discussed. Mr. Whiteworthy, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, we actually had talked about maybe putting a size limitation on backpacks or a bag of some sort, one that would account for the carrying of the Chromebooks and things like that, and then maybe 1 or 2 classes worth of materials. But the staff objected to that, probably rightfully so, because then they'll become the size police like the airport, and it would be a conflict about, how big a bag is, and we didn't want to have the carry around rulers and measure bags and things like that. Quite honestly, I think the best argument against the backpacks is simply that they are a trip hazard, and we have limited space within the classrooms. This year, it hasn't been as noticeable because our teachers are somewhat tied to the front of their rooms for a couple of reasons. Number one, they want to limit their exposure to other students, but also they have to maintain their visibility on cameras when students are distance learning. Under normal circumstances, the teachers are very often circulating around the room and with bags left in aisles and sticking out from chairs and things like that, or just on top of tables. It provides a very clustered work environment. So that's probably, in my opinion at least, the best reason to not use or not allow backpacks. Others, of course, is that students will be allowed to go back and use their lockers. There will be a more normal passing time. Keeping in mind that during this COVID year, we basically wanted to discourage students from loitering at their locker or congregating at their locker. And we also wanted to, limit passing time so students would get from one place to the next. So with those considerations, we decided to maintain our backpack prohibition for the coming year.
So for just a point of clarification here, you're not talking about a student can bring their backpack into school and then they place it in their locker and then go to class with the materials that they need. We're not talking about banning backpacks coming into the school building.
No, of course not.
It's just bringing them to classes.
Correct.
Okay.
Barry, I'm going to ask one of the questions that the kids have, which is why, when it's convenient for the school, do they get to have backpacks? And then when it's no longer a convenience issue, it becomes a weapons issue. And I think it's a valid concern.
Yeah, I would say that it's not so much a convenience issue as it was a byproduct of making accommodations because of the COVID guidelines. Yes, I know that historically the safety or weapons issue has been mentioned as a focal point when discussing backpacks. Personally, I don't necessarily buy that argument. Sure, it's potentially helpful, but as I saw some of the arguments brought up by students related to weapons, I agree wholeheartedly with those. I don't think that keeping backpacks in the lockers versus in the classroom makes us any safer, with the extent of the danger posed by tripping over them and just the mess that it creates in the classroom.
And I think that's a really good point, kind of the trip hazard and thinking about that. And I kind of went back to the students thing too. Is there anything, beyond taking them away? Because it sounds like the students want them, right? It's convenient to carry their books around. It's inconvenient to go back, whatever it may be. Is there something that the school can provide in the way of books in the classroom that you can bring it into the classroom, but you have to hang it up when you come in the door, so that we are alleviating then the trip hazard, the teacher being able to be more mobile now and walking around the room, and still allowing those students to carry their materials around the school, as opposed to always having to, hike it back to their lockers. So just something that, I would want to understand.
Yeah, I think it basically is gonna come down to space. That's sort of what you just described as the process that a lot of our teachers use for cell phones, as an example. They have a little hanging organizer for student cell phones, and when they come into class, they stick their cell phone in the little pocket and then pick it up at the end of the day. Obviously, a backpack is very, very different from a cell phone. The size alone, I think, basically prohibits that plan from the vast majority, if not all of our classrooms. We just don't have the wall space or even the floor space dedicated to store, upwards of 30 backpacks at any given time.
Barry, I understand that I'm on mute.
Hey, I understand. You guys are gonna-
You need to stay on mute. If your
Okay,
microphone is
sorry.
only, please.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
I understand you guys are going to make potentially concessions for this. If obviously, if somebody's on crutches, they're going to need a backpack. Is that true?
Yep, and we've done that always.
Okay, and how liberal are you going to be with that, or is that going to be an extreme exception only, or I mean, if people petition to carry their backpack, are you generally going to let them do that or not?
Well, as in, I guess maybe if I understand your question correctly, just because a student were to petition for an accommodation, there would need to be appropriate justification for that petition. Otherwise, we would have everyone carrying the backpacks. We might as well put it in the handbook. So there would have to be some sort of primarily a medical reason, whether it's, they're on crutches or they're in a walking boot or whatever. It is important to know that one of the other concerns, specifically amongst the 7th and 8th grade teachers, was that our staff was concerned about the enormous weight that students were carrying around with them on a daily basis, and the potential hazard that creates long term. We obviously recognize that we need to do a better job of teaching kids organizational skills and strategies for how to get from one class to the next and what materials to take with them. Every department or subject area does things a little bit differently. Some departments allow kids to keep books in their classrooms. Some have just classroom sets of books. So every situation is a little bit different depending on what classes the kid has. But those are all kind of issues that we discussed in terms of this ongoing review process for this handbook.
So that's kind of where I'm coming from. Every situation's different. Every kid is different. I remember going into 9th grade where it was a very different environment. It was stressful getting to the bell. And I think there's a lot of kids that deal with that level of stress as they're getting used to their new environment. And I would hope there would be exceptions to it for more reasons than just medical exceptions. I mean, if a kid is struggling to get to class and he's a disorganized person generally, a backpack would help that kid out.
And usually at the beginning of the school, well, if not usually always at the beginning of the school year, we end up going ahead and giving them, that extra time and helping them as teachers, making sure that they're getting to their next class, making sure that they have their materials. If they're late, we're not marking them tardy, but we're helping them problem solve, how to use their lockers appropriately and how to use their backpacks appropriately. So we are helping out with those pieces as well.
And then can you, as long as we're still on this topic, can you just briefly speak to the anticipated changes in passing time? That's the other thing that I think that people have been talking about.
Yeah, so this year, our passing time is about 5 minutes. Again, because students were allowed to use their backpacks and we also wanted to prevent loitering and congregating. I expect that next school year, our passing time is going to return to, if not the pre-COVID normal, very close to it. Previously, 9th through 12th graders had 10 minutes of passing time. I expect that we're going to be in the area of 8 or 9 minutes. I say 8 or 9 and not the previous 10, simply because previously we've had 25 minutes for lunch, and my attempt next school year is to keep that at 30 minutes, which is what it's at now. So 8 or 9 minutes is what I expect for 9-12. 7-8 has always historically been about 5 minutes. And generally speaking, that 5 minutes is suitable because the vast majority of students' classes are right next to each other. And those teachers who do sort of live on the outskirts, if you will, our science, art, and things like that, Phi-Ed, they have always made accommodations for those students, allowing them to arrive a minute late or leave a minute early. So internally and unofficially, we have sort of accommodated for that. The other thing to note is we've been much more encouraging the much more liberal practice of allowing students to use the restroom during class, which is something that I want us to continue, of course, moving forward to help alleviate that passing time stress, if you will.
Barry, a lot of these changes presume that we go back to normal next year, which is something that's still really yet to be seen. What happens if we don't? Are these kids then given back their backpacks? If we're still in the same environment that we're in right now?
Yes, there is a certain amount of hope to return to normal next year, and that, of course, is what we've been using as our guide. If for whatever reason we are not back to normal, we'll take a look at the guidelines that exist at the time. And I imagine just like last summer, we'll formulate a team to look at any sort of reopening changes, which very well could be a, return to backpacks and shortened passing time. It's all going to be dependent on the guidelines that we have in place. For the record, when we originally put out our proposals, when the administrative team proposed our suggested changes to site-based, it had an allowance for backpacks, but we were convinced by the staff otherwise. For good reasons, I should say.
Thanks. Thanks for all that background. Does anyone else have any questions for the actual changes to? I know we've got.
This is Susie. I just wanted to mention thanks to Barry and Matt. Quite a few of the unsubstantial changes are from my perspective when I looked at it. And I also encouraged both Matt and Barry when we're looking at these to look at them from the parent-student view of moving through different buildings and how can we continue to build that consistency of sort of that external facing look of these. And I don't see it yet, but know that they're committed to keep moving forward. So I guess my ask or question is, will these come back then potentially when the other two handbooks are reviewed so that we can have that sort of consistent look feel? I'm thinking, naming conventions, formatting, section height, titling, etc. So that, again, as parents who have kids in multiple schools, they can flow through the documents easily and find the information they need.
Yeah,
I can.
Go ahead, Barry.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. I can just tell you that accessibility, or maybe more appropriately, readability, is a consideration. You'll notice there's actually a ton of changes throughout the handbook, and mostly are as a result of formatting and things like that. It was my desire to make this handbook more web friendly, knowing that very few, if anybody, would actually print off the document and read it. But of course it does live on the internet, and so I wanted to make it web friendly. It does have a similar look and feel to the intermediate school handbook. I can't speak necessarily to the titling of the sections, but I know Mr. Shane and I had a conversation this morning and hypothesized some ways for us to build some consistency among the buildings.
Barry, I do have one question on a different section, which is the parent presence at school. It goes contrary to actually what we've been told at school board leadership seminars, where you say that parents do not have the right to attend school and visit their child without permission from DHS administration. It's my understanding that parents actually do have the right to come and ask to see their child at any time they are in school. So I'm kind of wondering where that comes from.
I'm trying to search for that section right now.
It's towards the very beginning of your handbook.
Page 28.
And the only thing I can think of is if our position is that the parent has to pull the child out of school for those conversations, but the parent has the right to access their child.
What section heading are you on, Rachel?
Page 9.
Oh, page 9.
Handbook, the bottom of page 9 going into 10.
Yeah, well, I can tell you that section of the document was copied from what I had put into place at the intermediate school. The intent there is certainly that we need to provide for the orderly operation of the school environment. And in terms of, parents just unannounced showing up to school, the vast majority of the time, that's not an issue and we do accommodate that. But we don't want parents to just, continually pull their kid out or, just sort of stop by and visit. Doesn't happen often, but on the occasion that it does, we want something in our handbook to address that concern. Per my previous training and workshops related to this sort of nature, it is my understanding that we do have the right to limit that, but that's something that we can certainly take a look at.
Yeah, I'm worried about the wording on there because we say they don't have the right to, and that's contrary to what we've been told at leadership conference this year, actually.
Do you have
Yeah,
specific concerns?
That was another one of my, oh, sorry.
The only time you would have a concern is when you have two parents who share custody and one parent would stop to see the child. If they were denied that right, that could become an issue for us if we said, no, you can't see the child. If the law is what we've been told, they do have the right to see that child. They may not be allowed to leave the building with the child due to custody arrangement, but they have the right to see their child.
Gotcha.
So I'm
That
sorry.
was one of the other comments I had made also back to Barry and Matt was related to these handbooks sort of are an extension of our policies that we approve, and as such have that sort of legalese weaving into them that we need to be mindful of the nature of the language we use and sort of in a sense always give ourselves somewhat of an out, right, from a qualifying perspective of the language used, not necessarily to keep it absolute, knowing that it may be an issue legally.
Yeah, I think we can just do some further investigation too on making sure. I can understand, in practicality of this, to my understanding, it is that we're trying to make sure that parents know that you can't just show up unannounced all the time, because that is a disruption to the educational process. Now, if the parent calls in the day before or sends a note to the office and says, hey, I have to have access to their child for whatever reason, I think it's more of that's the please inform the school ahead of time before the unannounced. And quite frankly, to my understanding, most parents do that all the time. But I think to Barry's point is we want to make sure that if there is that unusual situation where parents or a parent would show up just unannounced continuously, that we would want to make sure that we would have maybe set some parameters. And quite frankly, the practicality is if that is the case, I would assume that building administrators would be meeting with the parents to kind of go through and say, look, let's work out a system here that would be beneficial for both. That be accurate, Mr. Voigt?
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that Sue's comment was not just specific to that discussion. I think her comment was specific to the handbook in general. And is there precedent or would there be a need to have someone from a legal standpoint occasionally review it and just make sure that everything is all. And I know that you said that a lot of times the languages come from other organizations who have legal review their policies and handbook changes.
Right.
And so I feel like a lot of it's already embedded, but it's a good question, Sue.
I think to Sue's point too, as well, is that once we worked on getting consistent formatting and the principals work on that, and we get the product reviewed a few times, then I think it behooves us to potentially make sure that we just get our legal to look at it to make sure that there isn't any language that would back us into a corner legally.
Right. I think that's a huge point, Matt. Having that consistent sectioning reduces the amount of continual review if it's looked at as a system.
Right.
So to Sue's earlier question, will there be an opportunity for us to review all of them together before any of these need to be approved?
Well, what we've done in the past is we've always started with the high school to review because it's just much more of an extensive document to get prepared for next year. And then we always did the elementary and the intermediate together the following month. I mean, Mr. Voigt, I'm not sure, do you even print anymore?
No, we do not.
So we potentially could have a review next month.
Sure.
And look at all of them together. At least this kind of, I mean, if we did all three of them in one, that would be our work session.
Well, we just did the high school, right? I
Right,
mean,
so
in
we
theory.
we can just review it and just hold the high school until the June meeting.
Sure, if there's an urgency around it, I mean, I think what Sue is just looking for, if I understand correctly, is just some evidence of that some steps have been taken towards the consistency, you know.
Yep.
I know that they're all very different buildings and some of the sections don't even apply to all of them, right? But I think where they do apply is what she would like to see. So that's just,
Could we take that offline or
Yeah.
do we need to do that as a board?
well, the handbooks are approved at the board level. so,
Understand that,
yeah.
but I mean, the review of them and look and feel and consistency, could that be done offline on a
Yeah,
meeting? of
you know,
some
I
sort?
mean, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna meet with the principals Thursday morning to discuss this exact point. And, you know, we could easily do that. The other thing is that we might wait until we have principal positions filled. And then, you know, potentially do
Sure.
this, we could do a lot of the work offline, Corey, to your point. But you know, we've got 2 open principal positions that need to be filled. We might wait until they are freed up to be a part of this too as well. I mean, some of the formatting and that thing, that easily can be accomplished now. But consistency of language and reviewing those things, maybe when we have our principles in place, we could do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I would certainly expect that most of the actual heavy lifting would not happen at the board level, but if it's a call to action to make sure the right people are engaged and understand and the kind of the outcomes are all clear, then I think we're in right. Okay. Lots of discussion on that. And anything else before we move on to the next topic? Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Laura. All right, we've got a couple policies, 2 read policies, the next item on work session tonight.
We do. We have policy 620, credit for learning, and policy 624, online learning options. I had policy 620 would be the first one I had. The school counselors and the building administrative team at the high school review this policy. There's a lot of changes. It looks like there's a lot of changes, but actually a lot of the things that are being updated in this policy has always been practice. We're talking about when students move into our school district from another school, the transfer of credits, the review of transcripts to make sure that there's credits that are being accounted for in order to, it's called a transition process that the counselor works with the family and the student to make sure that credits are accounted for. So if a junior in high school moves in at the beginning of the year or even midway through the year, anytime during the year, there's always an audit of the transcripts, an audit of what is the student taking and those types of things. So that all through page 1 through 6, there's on each of those pages, you'll see a change. The one thing that you won't see, but you do see on the fresh linked copy is under weighted grading under page 6. The school district offers weighted grades for courses that are identified as more rigorous or academically challenged as follows. And there are 2 category of courses that do get weighted, and it's not a multiplier, but it's just adding a 0.66. And those are advanced placement courses and college in the school courses. Those are the only courses that are weighted with regards to a GPA configuration. But all of the other things throughout the policy here it looks like a lot, but it's actually, we already do. But it's nice to have the policy to give clear guidance to make sure that we're doing it appropriately. But counselors have been doing this for years already.
Okay.
The second policy up for to read due to substantive changes is policy 624, online learning. And basically on page 3 is where it talks about the dissemination and receipt of information. They added item number 3 and item number 4, and this we do.
Okay, any questions for Matt on those two?
They're on this evening's agenda for a first read.
Thank you. And we've got our COVID-19 update.
Very brief here, nothing much has changed. We're maintaining our contact tracing and quarantines when necessary. Very exciting, last Wednesday, we had an on-site vaccination clinic. I believe they vaccinated over 250 students. From majority of the students came from Delano High School, but we also had students from Rockford, Annandale, Howard Lake, Waverly, Winstead, and Watertown Mayor. So it was a regional it was a partnership between Ridgeview and Wright County Public Health and Delano schools and the surrounding school districts. So we thought it was a very good move we were the first one in the county, first district in the county to do this. Got a number of other schools in the county that are doing it this week. So we will, this is the Pfizer vaccine is the only vaccine that students are allowed to use age 16 and 17. Obviously students that are 18 they're adults. So they administered the Pfizer vaccine to those students and in 3 weeks, and on, I believe it is Wednesday, May 12th, they will be administered the second vaccine, and 2 weeks after that, they will be considered fully vaccinated. Just in time for graduation and some other big end of the year type things, whether it's in extracurricular activities and section play and playoff play, they would have that benefit of not having to quarantine. So very excited about that, but we're steady as she goes. We're maintaining our learning model. We're doing our contact tracing when we have to, and we're doing our quarantining when we have to as well.
So if, I just want to make sure I understood, and you probably sent this in the email, kids that are fully vaccinated don't have to quarantine?
Correct.
Okay.
Just like adults.
Would that carry over into anything that happens for the next school year potentially?
I think it depends on the research is there. I think they're still trying to figure out the question of, will there be a booster that's necessary to still consider to be fully vaccinated? Is it going to be an annual thing like a flu shot? We'll partner with those entities, whatever's needed. You know, if we need to do something mid-fall or 6 months down the road, you know, we'll try to accommodate that.
Yeah, I thought that was great. I was glad we were able to offer that. And I'm glad that was a good turnout. Okay, DASA updates. We've got a couple of different items on the agenda tonight related to DASA.
Yes, the one item is the grant partnership, and that's being reviewed right now by our legal counsel. So basically, DASA has been awarded a grant from the Mighty Ducks Foundation. It's the James Metzen Mighty Ducks grant. And basically, when they received the grant, I believe it's in the amount of $25,000, but they need a local government agency to facilitate the invoicing and the payment and the granting of the money. The foundation can't give it directly to the actual private organization of DASA. So DASA reached out to the school district and stated, you know, we're going to work through, it'll be a board resolution. This might be possibly as early as May 12th, because they're under a time frame to do certain things. So basically what we're doing is we're kind of the money tracker. We're the fiduciary manager of the money. It goes in, it'll go directly to DASA for their needs. This is specifically for upgrading their HVAC system. But they need a local government agency to do that. So we're working on a partnership. The partnership does need to come to fruition to the board in the form of a resolution. And we're getting that reviewed by legal right now. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up that's coming. I know I shared this in separate meetings as well, but just so you know that that's potentially could come down as early as May 12th, if not maybe even the regular school board meeting in May.
Okay, seems pretty straightforward. Then we also have the amendment to the lease agreement.
Yes, this was a while back. I believe the Building and Grounds Committee knows about this, and this is on the agenda this evening, just due to keeping up with the workings and some board members that serve. I know that Amy and Jim and Rachel might have gotten a little bit of taste of this along with the grant. But basically what they need to do is they need to replace the refrigeration unit that refrigerates the ice. There's a very, very expensive way to do that within the rink. And then there's a much less expensive way is basically to have your equipment outside the building on a slab of cement, like the chillers are, okay? So they had asked, they gave us a couple of different versions. I shared the aerial views. And so what we did is we had our legal counsel that's drafted the lease agreement. This would be an addendum to the lease agreement. It's basically giving DASA the access to that land that's outside their lease agreement, so they can put this in there, so they can put that refrigeration unit in there. It doesn't impede anything. The outdoor rink is still there. That they think they'll have the version that's closer to the building, that runs parallel to the building, because it's the shortest distance from the chillers to the actual ice. So this basically what this lease agreement, the amendment to the lease agreement is saying, yep, we give you access to that land and you can put your slab on there. So it's just re-describing the lease agreement land piece.
Yep, I remember talking about that before. I know we also kind of talked a little bit about the potential for the look and feel, right? I mean, I know that we have some challenges sometimes across the whole district when it comes to some of this kind of stuff, but landscaping and things like that can be done to try to hide it wherever we possibly can would be awesome at some point.
Yeah, and I think the version that they were looking at seriously is the one that's a little bit more tucked in closer to the building.
That would help.
Not out perpendicular from the building. I think it's just a great opportunity again to partner with DASA and to just show. I mean, it was difference of about $500,000 if they were forced to stay within their original lease agreement. And the city and the district doesn't have any real use for that sliver of property that we're talking about.
It's the right thing to do. Yeah.
So
no problem there. Any questions? That's also on the agenda tonight, correct?
That's correct.
Correct. Okay. Next item then is food service prime vendor agreement. Mary's going to talk about that.
So we currently have a prime vendor contract in place with Upper Lake Foods. And again, it was with Delano, Upper Lake Foods, instead, and St. Michael Public Schools combined so that we have 7 buying power. So we had to go up to bid.
We can't hear her. We can't hear Mary.
Thanks, guys.
Can you hear me now?
Looks like, yeah.
Okay, yep, let's say yes, thanks, Jim. So anyway, Delano, Howard Lake, Waverly, Winstead, and St. Michael Public Schools, we combine our proposals to go out to purchase food and get a lower price. And so we've had a contract in place for the last 5 years with Upper Lakes. It has to be renewed or go out for bids or proposals every 5 years. We did go out and we sent requests as well as put the specs in the newspaper. And we did get 3 vendors to come back and give us quotes. They're noted on the summary that was included. Upper Lakes came in at 6% produce. And if you look down, it's like, okay, well, maybe they're a little more expensive than the others when you look at the markups, but how to actually compare that, I took one item for every single thing that we put out to bid. There was 3 pages worth. Upper Lake still came in lower when you looked at the overall cost. They have lower costs like Reinhardt on the markup per case, but some of the cases of items were double the price of what Upper Lakes was. So staying with Upper Lakes still is the most cost effective for the 3 school districts. So this was just a summary, and we will have the same option to renew for another 4 years after 21-22 if we so choose.
Okay.
Any questions?
For me.
This will also be on the agenda tonight for approval.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right, the next item, we have our committee updates. We'll start with our student school board reps.
Hi, everybody. I don't think John is on yet. He had tennis tonight and I think he had a match, so he'll be at the meeting, but not this. So essentially me and him for the first time went to schools because we realized that he really doesn't know how to be a school board rep in a normal year. So we decided we needed to do that soon. So we went to the elementary school and we talked to a big group of 3rd graders with Mr. Hinker. And we talked about MCA testing because all of them had a lot of MCA testing going on in their school. And they all were like, so what are some highlights of the year? What's like the best parts of the year? And they were all like, oh yeah, MCA testing. And we were like, oh, okay. And they just had gotten done with something called sweet multiplication, which they were all excited about, which I think it's been a thing for a long time where like, as you do more and more multiplication, you get ice cream party at the end. And as you excel, you get more and more toppings. So they all were really excited about that. And they also did a virtual art and science fair recently where they all either made a science project or an art project. The art project was much more popular. And then they put it into a slideshow and shared it to a lot of the classrooms. So classrooms got to see all the work that the students did. And then in general, just some like common things is I think that kids miss moving around, obviously, and playing with different kids because they've been around the same group for a long time. So they just said that they're looking forward to that changing. But I mean, there's only like a month left. But I told Mr. Hinker that like everything seems really, really normal there. Like considering the circumstances, it's very good. The kindergarten hallway still does like animal stuff, with the chicks and stuff. So we're doing really good in the elementary school. And then we went to the intermediate school and we talked to Mr. View. We talked, there's a new DIS store, which was super duper cool. So they were just donated 2 3D printers. And so kids are learning how to electronically make things and then print them off. And then they have a store for other kids to buy things. It was really, really cool. There's about 25 kids in it. And she said, this is run by Mrs. Egley. And she said that there's like a sales team and a finance team. And so they're learning very, very real life scenarios and they're learning how to make profits. And there's actually a kid who got upset about something and how he couldn't make money off of something he made. So now he is selling things out of his locker. He has a bit of a black market trade thing going on. So we thought that was pretty funny. There is also a new student council and that was just made. So they all made a paragraph to apply and then they took their names off of the top and then the teacher did, and then they posted it all over the school and then kids could vote for whichever paragraph looked the best. So they made a student council out of that. And that student council made like mint bags for the MCA testing because a lot of kids like eating mints during it to keep them awake. So they did that and they are doing dress up weeks, May 3rd through 7th. So that was really, really cool. And then Benchmark was happening. Well, Benchmark, this is the 2nd year they're using it. And so we talked to a group of 4th graders about how they liked it. And what's really nice about it is that it was COVID friendly because it's all online and kids are still really liking that because the 4th graders have now done that for 2 years. So they were all still enjoying it. And then in the high school, obviously there's the backpack thing. I talked to John about that, and I was like, I mean, as a senior, there's only so much I care about it. So I was like, if you're super passionate about it, you can start helping out. But we decided like that it seems like Peter has a pretty good handling on it. And so John has talked to them about that. So he's going to be more of the representation of that with Peter. And in terms of seniors, we're just getting ready for our prom and for our graduation that we're very excited for. So we're just kind of going through the movements of the last couple of weeks. But that's all. Are there any questions?
Not for me.
I was very helpful today.
Oh, John, you're on now. Okay.
Just a question for me logistically, and it's going to be listed under other, Madam Chair, I believe we have it under the list of topics. We do have coming up the big task of filling Bridget's shoes, as obviously she's graduating and finishing her 2-year term as a student school board representative. So I was wondering just logistically if both of you are available on I believe it's an informational meeting. I usually have the school board representatives there to share with potential candidates, but I can talk to you about that. I think it's the informational meeting is going to be on Monday, the 3rd of May. So if you could, it's during the lunches, so it would be that time period. If it doesn't work, don't worry. There's 2 of you. So John, if you can't make it, or either or, Bridget or John, just.
You said it was during lunch?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. I'll talk to you more offline about it. Just logistically wanted to plant the seed that that's an informational. It's very important that we do have at least one. Great if both could attend, because you guys can share that experience with the potential candidates.
Gosh, it feels like we just interviewed John. Seriously.
And we did, because it was in the fall.
Well, that's true. We did it a little later than we normally would, but yeah. So like this year has gone so fast. I can't imagine how you guys all feel. Okay, that's great. Thank you, Bridget, for the update. Welcome, John. Hope you did well on your match. Next up is the referendum committee.
The only update that I have to share is that the survey is in the field today. People got phone calls, so we're just kind of working through the logistics of that. Sometimes it's hard for a caller to articulate what they're doing necessarily, as it's a cold call. We did make the conscious decision just to let the process go and let it be facilitated. So hopefully over the next 2 weeks, they'll get their 300 calls in and get good data feedback that will be shared at that special meeting on the 12th of May.
Good. You just so I understand, in case we get other questions on this, is there an opportunity to provide feedback during the survey? Like how to pronounce Delano?
Yeah, I'm going to be reaching out to Baker Tilly.
Okay, that's the only thing that I've heard so far. So, all right, good. Okay, administrative updates. Got some stuff going on from an administrative standpoint. Just a few interviews happening right now.
Just a few things, just to update everybody on where we're at. Tomorrow afternoon, we're going to be facilitating a process with our, we have 3 elementary finalists, and we're going to be doing administrative interviews, and we're going to do a meet and greet, virtual meet and greet with the staff, and we're also going to do a building tour. The building tour and the meet and greet are about 10 minutes each. And then the administrative interview is approximately 30 to 35 minutes in its duration. So we'll start that at 2 o'clock, and then we'll go through till about 4:45. Then we do have 2 finalists at the intermediate school, and we'll do the same process that we're doing tomorrow afternoon, the following Tuesday afternoon. We're also going to be receiving tomorrow, Jenny Lorenz, the HR coordinator, and myself will be receiving a report on each of the 3 finalists based on a phone interview that was extended to each of the finalists from Human X Ventures. So that'll just be another piece of information as we compile all the data to make the educated recommendation to you. And that recommendation will be at the May 12th school board meeting. So it started, the May 12th special school board meeting agenda is starting to fill up a little bit. But I think it's good and timely. and we should have everything in place for that. In addition, we have 6 candidates that we're going to be interviewing for the community ed director position, and that will take place next week as well.
Busy, busy.
Hey, Matt, on that, just the logistics, on that appointment, location is TBD.
For tomorrow?
Mhm.
I'm sorry, that should be the Delano Elementary multipurpose room.
Okay.
So it's at the elementary school.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Any other committee updates that we need to go through?
I think we have it on the agenda, but DAC, the,
Yeah, we can just go through that at the regular agenda. And I
Perfect.
think these are typically stuff that don't make the regular agenda.
Yep.
Perfect, thanks, Jenny. Yep, and then the last item is our student school board rep interviews, which are being scheduled for Wednesday, May 12th. No, May 12th is a busy day.
May 12th is a busy day. We technically always have a couple of board members partake in the interviews. We're proposing to move that. That's the late start day. So if we did it another day after school, we've always run into logistics of kids just being involved in activities. And we've recorded interviews before, but we thought we'd take advantage of the late start and have the students just come in at, say, 8:30. But that just depends. I know Lisa is able to be a part of the interviews. I know Corey can't as board vice chair. I know that you have schedules, but if there would be anybody else willing to, it's again the 12th, and we'd start approximately around 8:30. The interviews don't take long. It's just a matter. We do interview every single candidate that applies. That's always been our case. If there's anybody else that's interested
Yeah, maybe
and
just
can
shoot-
do that, I know it's in the, it's your work schedules has to be.
Yeah, so maybe just check check your schedules and shoot Matt an email if you're able to
Exactly.
help out.
I'm able to help, I think, Matt. Let me know unless someone else wants the opportunity. I did it last year. So I'm happy to give the opportunity to someone else, or else I can assist.
Okay, thanks. Jen. All right, any other topics? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to move to recess.
Jenny will make that motion.
I'll go ahead and second. Motion by Jenny, second by Seguin. Move to a roll call vote.
Ms. Segwin,
Aye.
Mr. Black,
Aye.
Ms. Roser,
Aye.
Ms. Deppa,
Aye.
Mr. Gearke,
Aye.
Ms. Rosenau,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson.
Aye.
All right, we're in recess. See you in about 9 minutes. Oh, I was a little worried there for a bit.
Lisa, I don't think we have sound.
I don't hear anything.
Can't hear you.
We don't have any sound.
No sound.
That's a problem.
Try again.
Can you hear us now, Jen?
Yep.
Now we can hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear them.
Can you hear me, Corey?
Still can't.
Because now I.
Oh, we
now
can
I
hear Jim.
Amy, can you say something?
Yep.
Okay. All right, I'm sorry. Got to look at my screen more often.
It's okay. I didn't participate in the pledge. I didn't catch it.
I know, I'm sorry.
All of a sudden I was like, wait, did we start?
We did, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
You guys couldn't hear us. Next time we'll do a sound check at the beginning of everyone. So we had a motion and a second for the consent agenda already. And so we were moving to roll call, and that's when we realized you couldn't hear us because we couldn't hear Paul.
Sorry, Lisa, who had your motion?
We had a motion by Jenny and a second by me, Seguin, for the consent agenda. We'll move to a roll call vote, please. Can you still not hear us, Paul?
Hang on just a minute. I've got an echo going. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Roll call, Mr. Gearke,
Aye.
Ms. Seguin,
Aye.
Mr. Black,
Aye.
Ms. Deppa,
Aye.
Ms. Rosenau,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Ms. Roser.
Aye.
Consent agenda is passed. Next item on our agenda is a resolution for acceptance of gifts. Tonight's resolution is whereas Target $22 and CAF $83 for Delano Elementary School, DES Pi $700 for conference meals, Alex Rozier $1,190 for 2 mobile store display cases, DIS Pi $248 for Battle of the Books, Benevity Fund $118.46 for Delano High School Pie $400 for Teachers Conference Dinner, All Season Sports $926 for athletics activities, Basketball Boosters $5,575.10 for girls basketball coaches, Gymnastics Boosters $277 for score flashers, Hockey Boosters $950 for vital signs, and the following donations were made to the Orange Crush Robotics teams. Number 326 FRC, Core Trust Bank $400, David Harding $40, Trelleborg Ceiling Solutions Delano LLC $2,500, and Eaton Corporation $3,000. Lots of great donations. Thanks everybody for all those donations. These have been generously offered to donate to Delano Public School District, whereas conditions of these are for the programs noted above. I have a motion to accept tonight's resolutions for gifts, acceptance of gifts.
Motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Deppa, second by Black. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Ms. Roser.
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Black,
Aye.
Ms. Rosenau,
Aye.
Ms. Deppa,
Aye.
Ms. Seguin,
Aye.
Mr. Gearke.
Aye.
Did you get that last aye? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Okay.
Yep.
Sorry about that. All right, that resolution carries. Next item on the agenda is our personnel matters. Got a number of personnel matters to approve this evening. A couple retirements, a couple of employments, student aids. couple new hires, a leave of absence, and a contract change. Specifically want to call out to tonight's agenda, the resignation or the retirement, I should say, of Carla Vio, 22 years of service in the Delano Public School District. Thanks so much, Carla, for your dedication to our school district for all those years. So I have a motion for, I have a motion for tonight's personnel matters.
I'll make the motion.
Black.
Jenny on second.
Motion by Black, seconded by Rose. No, any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Ms. Depa? Mr. Black?
Aye.
Ms. Rosenau?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Ms. Segwin?
Aye.
Mr. Gearke?
Aye.
Ms. Roser?
Aye.
All right, personnel matters are approved. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Public comment is a section of the agenda where school patrons are given the opportunity to address the school board regarding items not on the agenda. All patrons will be asked to state their name and address for the record. While the board appreciates feedback from public on this forum, board members will not comment or discuss topics brought up by speakers at this time. I understand we do have somebody here tonight for public comment.
Yes. Sure.
Hello.
So my name is Peter Depa. I live 524 West River Road. Same house. And I'm presenting the case for backpacks. And so in the last year, we've been using backpacks all throughout the COVID stuff in order to make sure that we were following the social distancing guidelines and staying away from our lockers as much as possible to avoid mass groupings. Well, somebody on the site-based committee let slip that they were actually planning on banning backpacks again next year. And so we made a petition and are trying to push in order to keep them. The main points we were told for possible risk was our security factors. Mainly if someone's trying to hide a weapon in a bag and bring it to school. But our backpacks have never been checked before entering a building. They're stored in the hallways right next to the classrooms, feet away from them. We would have access to anything in our backpacks all day. And preventing backpacks from being in the classroom does nothing to prevent anybody who is trying to bring a weapon into the school. All it does is place that weapon in a hallway that's frequently filled with kids. And once a backpack is inside the school, the risk is the same whether it's in the locker or in the classroom because they're so close and we're not checking bags either way. The main question we had for the board was what changed between this year and last year where they become much more risk. The way we see it, nothing has changed. COVID's been a year with a bunch of increases in mental illness, depression, which are all things that tend to support things like school shootings and bringing weapons to school. But we haven't seen anybody bringing weapons. We haven't had any active lockdowns where a kid has brought a weapon in with the intent to hurt or kill someone. And to be honest, COVID didn't stop school shooters, and backpacks were only allowed as a convenience for the school to manage COVID restrictions. We've heard that another thing was keeping the backpacks is a hindrance to escaping situations like a fire. A few solutions we've seen is that the size of the backpack could be limited, preventing things from like a duffel bag or a larger baseball bag from being brought into a classroom. We, at least a lot of teachers already do, have them keep clear of walkways by either hanging them on the back of a chair or putting them under a desk. And even other teachers have with the idea of putting all backpacks up underneath under like a smart board or along an edge wall to keep them out of the way to prevent this stuff. The reason we want to keep them is they make it so much easier to get from class to class without having to worry about stopping at lockers, going to the bathroom, anything like that. They're designed as a means for carrying items between places, and they allow us to carry everything we need for the day on our person. We have a lot of materials that we need to carry, especially nowadays, with having a laptop, any accessories, chargers, along with textbooks, notebooks, folders, any sort of writing utensils. And for a lot of us, we're carrying them across the school each day. The way we were taught in 5th and 6th grade was to keep our backpacks in our lockers and carry 2 classes worth of stuff. But that's usually at least 2 textbooks, at least 2 notebooks, any number of folders depending on what class you're taking, any computers, and any writing implements. And the problem with this is you're carrying all of this, trying to go across the high school, up and down steps, down hallways, while trying to fit within the 5-minute passing time. And if you have to go to the bathroom, you're just kind of screwed. But we had a lot of issues with going in late because kids just couldn't make it and do everything they needed to get done. And with 7th or 9th grade, our lockers for the most part are located in the pool hallway. All of our classes, for almost every class, are located all the way across the building. 5 minutes to go across the building and back, while allowing for time for a bathroom break, just doesn't work out. And too many kids are being late for this. I myself got detention for being late for taking a bathroom break every once in a while. Bathroom issue cover. The other thing was things that we like to keep private from peers. This can include things, especially in a year where we don't have showers, like a deodorant stick in your backpack, a spare change of clothes if you need one. These things are just typically things we don't want other people to see because they can be embarrassing depending on it. One of the main purposes of the school is to teach us our executive functioning skills, and we are expected to learn skills in life that will help us throughout. One of those skills is organizational and preparedness. I would like to ask how many people in this room currently use a laptop bag, backpack, or a briefcase or purse on a daily basis. Adults are frequently using these items to remain organized and prepared for their daily life. It allows them to keep their necessary items with them and some items that are probably less necessary but are available in case the need arises. My point being that a lot of people in their day-to-day lives utilize some sort of backpack or similar item to keep organized. In fact, adults often pay significant money to have these items to help keep them organized while looking professional. It doesn't make sense to me that adults are requiring a higher level of organizational preparedness of young kids when they themselves aren't practicing the same stuff. As an adult, you're allowed to have a bag prepared with you for almost everywhere you go, whether that be on hikes or in jobs. And it just doesn't make sense that as students we're expected to have this higher level when the adults were just going back to the same thing. The last thing I have here is, this is a petition that we signed. We have about 400 names on it. Spent about 2 weeks or so giving it after we heard. But sadly, a lot of them couldn't make it tonight. But I'm not sure if we give this to you or.
Thank you.
Other than that, that's pretty much all I have here.
Thank you, Peter. Nice job.
Good job.
I do commend your desire to advocate for yourselves on behalf of your students. So nice job showing up tonight.
Thank you.
I recommend actually, we won't discuss it at the board table tonight. We did discuss the handbook changes briefly in our work session earlier today. I would recommend that you take this to the high school site-based group, who is actually the group that makes most of these decisions related to the handbook. They would probably be really interested in hearing your argument, and I think it would be interesting for you to hear their perspective as well.
So we have one of the teachers who let it slip was actually in full support of this and has been having us update her as we keep going. She was actually a big help in getting a lot of this set up.
Super, great, thank you, good luck.
Thank you.
Good night, Peter. Anyone else here for student public comment tonight? Stop that. And did anyone submit anything online? Paul?
Nope, nothing additional.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, then we will move on to our administrative report, starting with Superintendent Shane.
Thank you, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Last month, I gave you just a quick overview of 2 work plans of our strategic plan. They were facilities and technology. This month, I would like to just give you a brief update on the 2 other of the 4 major aims of our strategic plan, and that's in the areas of professional development and curriculum. And basically, and I've shared these documents, they were linked to the work session list of topics. I think I had to grant sharing session or sharing permission for you to as well. So you should be able to access these documents online as well. The first area that I would like to cover here is the 2021 work plan for professional development. Its annual goal was basically, again, not too dissimilar to related to COVID, but it was to support the training and implementation of the district's curriculum in the 3 learning models in the COVID era. And so really curriculum kind of readjusted their move towards the traditional review of curriculum, implementation of new curriculum, standards review, things like that, to actually assist teachers in the professional development area to make those transitions. And we did that in several areas, the 2-hour late starts, the district professional development days, and really, quite frankly, our staff just organically talking with each other, sharing topics about how they could do things differently within these 3 different learning models. So we basically, we had 4 major action steps. We were to provide some social and emotional training for our educators at various different levels, because we knew this was going to be coming off of last spring, coming into the fall, living through this year. It's going to be tough. It was tough on a lot of our students and a lot of our staff. We wanted to provide additional time during the 2-hour late starts for the implementation planning, provide in-house per site tech training. And a lot of this, again, like I said, was really just informal conversations online between staff members and sharing their secrets on Google Classroom or any other Google tools that we would utilize to facilitate either in a hybrid distance learning or even in person. And then to provide additional time in transition days to prepare for a change. And if you remember, we implemented about 3 to 5 transition days when we had to move from in-person to hybrid or hybrid to distance learning. We had some transitional times that we did facilitate throughout the course of that of this year. Hopefully, we will not have to transition anymore until the end of, throughout the end of the school year. So there's a brief overview on just what people have been working on that's a little bit more germane to our unique situation in the COVID era. In the area of curriculum, we had the annual goal to facilitate district curriculum in the COVID era under the 3 different learning models. So the training was there under professional development. Now it was the actual facilitating their curriculum, whether they were in hybrid, distance learning, or in person, and dealing with those types of things. We had 3 major action steps under curriculum. Was really to plan, design, and establish and implement a district return to school plan. Each of the sites have that, and they facilitated them throughout the year. Then we were to plan, design, and establish and implement a school and a program return to school plan. And then to facilitate curriculum as needed if a learning model change is required. And we didn't have to change anything in the area's curriculum. We had to modify a few things just based on that. But we were able to do this. So we were able to modify our curriculum in order to deliver in all 3 different learning models. And those are the 2 strategic plan areas that I would like to update you. And if you had any questions with those 2.
No questions?
The only other thing that I had that I wanted to just beg the pardon of the board is just to give you a little bit of an update on our administrative positions. We have 3 finalists for the elementary school position. We have 2 finalists for the intermediate school position, and we're going to be interviewing 6 candidates for the director of community education programs next week, actually. So this week is the finalist process for the elementary school. Next week is the finalist process for the intermediate school. In addition, next week will be the interviews for the 6 candidates for the community ed director position. So that concludes my report, and I will entertain any questions that you may have.
No questions for me, any from you? Thanks, Matt. At the conclusion of your report too, I also wanted to take this opportunity to publicly recognize you. I understand that you won an award last month didn't actually tell any of us about it, but thanks to Paul Downer, I was able to learn that Mr. Shane won the 2021 Regional Administrators of Excellence Award on behalf of the Minnesota Association of School Administrators. So I just wanted to congratulate you on that award. And if you'll just allow me to just read a quick paragraph from the press release, because I think it talks a little bit about what the award is about. The Minnesota Association of School Administrators has announced the recipients of the 2021 Regional Administrators of Excellence Awards. Each of the administrators who received this award is recognized for their leadership, concern for students, and active involvement in professional and community affairs. The recipients were honored at a statewide recognition ceremony during the virtual MASA MASC Spring Conference in early March. Congratulations, Matt. It's very well deserved.
Thank you. It means a lot that this comes from your colleagues. So we all know what the work is. We all know what the job is. And I was very humbled to receive the award. And I'm sure that Mr. Downer will be publicizing this in a future district publication.
I absolutely kept confirmed that he is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to reports from the principals then, starting with Mr. Vio.
Hello, Madam Chair and members of the board. First of all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to get you some information on the intermediate school. Just recently, last Wednesday, we had the first of 2 vaccination clinics held at the intermediate school. We were able to vaccinate 252 approximately 16 to 18-year-olds from Delano, Rockford, and Howard Lake Waverly during the course of that day. And we'll have the second dose to be administered on May 12th. So that'll be coming up. And we've been working with collaboration with Wright County Public Health and a couple of other agencies to pull that off smoothly and allow for parking in our bus parking area and a couple of different ways that we made that happen. But it was a wonderful event. It went off very, very smoothly. I don't recall any hiccups or issues other than potentially some of our high school students not knowing exactly which door to go in since they're so used to coming in the main entrance. So that was the only minor glitch in that day, but it was a wonderful day. And thanks to Wright County Public Health and Ridgeview Clinics for all of their work on that. We are in the midst of working on our schedule for next year and having everything prepared for a smooth transition into what lies ahead for the intermediate school for grades 4, 5, and 6. This year, we will also, we've been working with our Phi Ed staff, and they want to have a track and field day, and we've been working on implementing ways in which we can still remain not in close contact and work towards having a track and field day. And we're going to have a track and field day on, I believe, Thursday, May 20th, and Friday, May 21st. May 20th will be for the 4th and 5th grade, and the 21st will be for the 6th grade. Upcoming, we've got a band concert on the 27th. I'm going to knock on wood. Mr. Daly has been planning on sunny and 70-degree weather to have the band concert performed outside, and parents can park and sit in the parking lot so that everybody is socially distanced and a safe distance, and yet give our kids an opportunity to perform, because as any of you who may or may not have sat in on a meeting between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock in the morning know, our band has been practicing feverishly all year long right outside my office. And so they need to get that opportunity to perform in front of an audience, which will be a great opportunity. Again, choir will be performing in the Performing Arts Center on June 1st, right after Memorial Day. So they too will get that opportunity. We again are working with Ryan Toole and others who are involved in making sure that all of these events are pulled off in a very safe fashion. Next week, we will be implementing the FAST testing at the spring implementation of our FAST testing at the intermediate school. As we have just finished up our MCAs, last week. And when I say finished, I mean that in a relative term. We had a class out on quarantine. We've had others out who have been in and out. And so this week and early next week, we will also be finishing up any of the makeup MCA tests that we have out there, and hopefully get that wrapped up by early next week. So that's pretty much what I have to report on for the intermediate school. I would just like to get the board informed of a couple other things from the my other hat, if you will, on the assessment coordinator side. I've been looking at some of our information over the last couple of days, and I just want to let the board know that this year by far we have more opt-outs for MC8 testing than we have ever had in the past. Currently, I see about 126 students in our high school that would count in our denominator for accountability that have opted out of testing. We have another 30 students who are opting out for COVID reasons, and those 30 students are not in the, we don't have to worry about them in the denominator. But as you can, hear and potentially start calculating that in your brain, even if and when we do start to look at the summary results, it's not going to be an extremely accurate picture of how our kids are performing when we've got so many holes with kids that have opted out this year for whatever reason that they seem to be opting out for. You contrast this to 2019 when we had 28 students across the district opting out. So again, we've got that's going to be a major change in the way that we look at the data. And I guess I would also say that, MDE is also, they know the data is going to be, and in one of their meetings, they called it weird. So they know that the data is going to be altered in some sort of fashion. And we're all just going to kind of wait and see what that result is going to tell us. And obviously we're anxious to see some of these results, but we just have to kind of keep everything into perspective as we start to hear results that might be coming back. And again, I believe the results will be out in late August when we can start to talk about summary data for each of our classes in our schools. So with that, I would entertain any questions that you might have.
So did you say that those are 126 kids across the district?
Those are 126 kids just in the high school.
Okay.
So there's 27 more in the intermediate school and 5 in the elementary.
So what does that mean then for when the data comes back? Are those opt-outs still considered did not pass or did not meet?
So what will happen is that will all depend upon how everything is calculated. If you were to go onto the Department of Education and look up what our results will be published at that time, when we talk about the accountability window, those students will be in the denominator. So we will have lower results as a result of that. So rather than our number proficient divided by the number who took it, it will be the number proficient divided by the number who took it, plus those 126 kids in the high school. So the denominator is going to be larger and thereby lowering our rate. But what I know internally, what we'll be looking at is how many students were proficient versus how many students that took it, to try to equate apples to apples with some of our previous scores. And when that comes out again, that's certainly what we're going to be looking at. But if you're talking about that accountability window from the Department of Education, and again, they're basically holding this year harmless as far as the accountability window and putting schools on watch lists or whatever you want to call them. That's really not necessarily going to be taking place, but that is the way that the Department of Education will be disseminating that data and posting that data on their website.
And do we have QComp standards that are tied to that? Will that have an effect on the QComp standards or QComp compensation as well?
I believe, see, the way that we wrote, if any of the buildings put their goals, they put it in basically divided by the number of kids who took the test. But I think most, the high school might be slightly different, but I think the elementary and the intermediate school based their scores on the FAST results for this very reason.
Do we have any insight as to why there were so many opting out this year? Was it truly just because of the learning model changes and COVID? I mean, I heard you had COVID specific kids, but was there any reason out of the ordinary for the 126?
You know, I guess I spoke with our student board reps earlier today, and they have a theory about potentially what happened, but I haven't heard or gotten any specific information as to why there's so many more, other than it's a COVID year, and since it's a COVID year, we heard and we thought we could opt out. If that ties into all these model changes and, you know, only being in school half-time at the high school level for most of the year, that I could not tell you.
Okay, thanks for the update, Mr. Beal.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Joe? Okay, we can move on to Mr. Barry Voice at the high school. And just real quick, Barry, can we get him to turn the volume up a little bit in here? I was having a hard time a little bit hearing Joe. Thank you. All right, thanks, Barry. Go ahead.
Well, good evening, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I have quite a few updates to provide for you regarding Delano High School. One of those which is MCA testing, and Joe kind of hit on some of the big points. We are also wrapping up MCA testing this week. Obviously, some of the quarantines that we've been working through have made this troublesome, and I would venture to guess also that some students who would not have opted out before the quarantine, but then missed their window, have just made the decision to opt out as a result of being quarantined and then not having further disruptions to their normal school day. So that might be one potential reason. At least it certainly is a factor for some of our students. I don't know that it accounts for 127 or if that was the number Joe quoted. The MCA testing, though, is important because we obviously use that information as a data when we triangulate the information we collect on the students to propose remedial instruction and different opportunities, which is a relevant subject now because we are in the midst of the scheduling process. Obviously, our improvement plan, our QComp goals heavily relate to reading. And so we want to make sure, of course, that we identify the students who do have needs and place them in classes appropriately. The one thing that we're excited about this coming year as well is an opportunity to increase our students' exposure to math intervention. So we sort of have a creative approach that we've worked with our math department to create for next school year. And what that means quite simply is that our math teachers are going to be pushing into each other. We obviously at the high school are limited with additional staff resources. So we're going to utilize more smartly the staff that we do have and push into those classes to provide for some more small group and direct instruction. Speaking of the, well, I kind of already mentioned at least loosely the literacy work and the relationship of the MCA data as well as other data we're collecting, but that includes classroom assessment results as well as the FAST testing that's going to happen in the spring. But also it's important to know that our QComp team at the high school, and this is true across the district, but we've been working very closely at the high school building with between administration and the QComp leaders to dissect an appropriate path forward for how do we incorporate literacy instruction and also instructional literacy. Obviously, the high school has a variety of specialist departments that don't necessarily tie that well to the typical connotation of literacy. So we're looking at how we can more strategically train our staff to still utilize a lot of the approaches that we expect of our reading teachers. Things like progress monitoring, the focus on core standards and those sorts of things. So that kind of is the first three amendments, somewhat relating to our site improvement plan, but also pressing because of the time of the year that we're in right now. The next thing I wanted to mention was that we are in the midst of planning for summer school. This is a little unique this year because of ESSER funds. Delano High School has the opportunity to provide some remedial programming during the summer, and we are going to focus those efforts on recovery. Obviously, the pandemic has taken a toll on some students and their performance in class, which, if not remediated, could of course impact graduation down the road. So we fortunately have access to 2 different summer credit recovery programs, one of which is through Wright Tech Center, and that is going to be our primary, or I should say our priority source for credit recovery. We're going to funnel as many kids to Wright Tech Center as we can. And then when that space is used up, we are going to provide, to the extent possible, credit recovery here at the high school. So I'll be working with our department chairs to identify appropriate curriculum so that students can make up some credits without having to push that off into the next year and then, kind of clog up the schedule with some of those things, if you will. We are obviously, because it's the end of April and graduation is quickly approaching, we are planning for a graduation ceremony. And based on seniors' feedback, we are going to move forward with commencement outdoors at our football stadium. The kind of neat thing about that is it allows for us, following the guidelines, to allow for seniors to have 8 guests. I have a series of plans and instructions in place. Those are not quite public as of yet. They have been shared with our seniors. And I've also shared them across the district with a variety of our senior parents who are also employed by the district to maybe get their impact on how well they understand the different rules and guidelines. It's extremely important that when we get to commencement, that everybody follow the rules. The only way we're able to offer the commencement that we are is if everybody follows the rules. So there's quite a lot of them. It's taken a lot of logistical planning, assigned seats and social distancing and spacing and staggered arrival times and those sorts of things. So I'm going to be rolling that out to our seniors soon. It's my expectation that when seniors pick up their caps and gowns, they will get the full packet of information for how graduation is going to occur. And we, of course, are just praying for very nice weather. We do have an indoor backup plan, but the indoor backup plan only allows for 2 spectators per graduate. So hopefully, of course, the weather is nice and we can allow for 8 people. So the last thing I wanted to mention before I pause for your questions is that we recently received the results of our University of Michigan student survey that was taken last school year by our 10th graders. And the survey was taken pre-pandemic. And so in the little abstract at the beginning, they made a mention that it would be interesting to see how this year's results compare to last year's, because that would give you a sense for how the pandemic is impacting our students. The focus of this survey from the University of Michigan is really, it's fairly comprehensive, although the main point is to assess students' use and attitudes towards tobacco and other illegal substances. I can tell you that as I did a very quick review of our results, comparing Delano to national averages, we generally outperform the nation in all categories. So on the questions that ask about good attitudes and behaviors, we have a higher representation of Delano students. And for those questions that asked about maybe harmful attitudes or behaviors, we had a lower representation of the national average. Overall, that was good. Obviously, a much more thorough and analytical look at the data is going to be necessary. But I can tell you another quick observation is that it appears Delano students have a much more, I don't want to say the word favorable, but their opinions of using alcohol is not, they do not see that as maybe severe or detrimental as they do other substances. So if you were to look at the substances that are compared in the survey between vaping, smoking, marijuana, other illegal substances compared to alcohol, there seems to be a much more prevalent use and acceptance of the use of alcohol than the other substances. Again, very, very quick review of the information, but figured I'd update you there. So with that, it's a lot of information, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
None for me.
No questions. I just wanted to commend you on making graduation work out so that they can have a more traditional graduation. I know it's a lot of work on your end.
I appreciate it. It's only going to work if the weather's nice. So we all.
Okay, I'm sure there'll be a lot of people watching the news for a few days beforehand, hoping for a good forecast.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, next up, we'll hear from Mr. Hinker from the elementary school. Who's here in person tonight. Hi.
Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for having me this evening. Pleasure to be here to speak to some of the highlights of some of the things that are happening at the elementary school. And I think one of the things that I'm happiest to report is that the elementary is running, I guess, as close to normal as possible at this time right now. We're not 100% out of the woods, but most business and operations and things that we're working on right now would be happening any part of any school year. So that is really good to know. So a few things that are going on, some of the highlights coming up in the remaining months of the school year. We have our Tiger Dash is going to be at the elementary school this weekend. So we put out an invitation to our parents to come on Saturday morning, and we'll have a race. It ends up being kind of around that big block that goes past the cemetery and comes back up on Tiger Drive. So that'll be Saturday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. So that'll be a fun event, fun way for our community to get back together. There's not been very many opportunities for kids and families when it comes to school-based activities to get together. So we have a nice outdoor activity for our families. Another thing we wrapped up last week was our virtual art fair. That we had better attendance for our virtual art fair than we did for our science fair. That one was a little bit tough to run with the experiments and the demonstration projects, but we definitely had some participation. But for the art fair, we had over 100 entries from our students, a lot of our first grade students. So we're working to put together a video and photo montage to share with the students. Some of the students started watching it today, so they can just kind of go through a slideshow and see all of the pictures all of the art projects that were presented by some of the other students in the building. As Joe had mentioned, we wrapped up our MCA reading test last week. That was just our third grade students. And just real quick looking at the data, we have all of our students except for about a handful or so that have completed the test. When you have only 150 students, that handful can really adjust, what that final percentage ends up being. As Joe mentioned, we had 5 students that opted out. So we had the vast majority of our students participate, and just generally looking at the data, no big surprises. When we look at our FAST data, we track this cohort, kindergarten, first, second, all the way on through our system, and they are performing pretty much as we would expect. So one of the things we were expecting was going to be a big drop, a big dip. They are performing as what we would have expected. So we're very grateful that we kept our students in person and we're able to kind of recoup some of those losses that our students experienced last year. They're not back to where we want them, but we are getting closer and closer each and every day. Our math test is going to be for our third grade students, and the students are going to be doing it on Tuesday and Thursday of this week. And then our kids will be done with all of the MCA testing. Having the Chromebooks for all of our students has been extremely helpful because it ends up being the MCA tests only disrupt 2 days for reading and 2 days for math. We just get it all done in one quick shot, and kids are able to do the tests in their classrooms in the environment where they're the most comfortable. So we take those tests very serious, but at the same time, it's not that big of an interruption in our school day. Fast testing is coming early in May, so we'll finish up that round of testing coming up later this spring. And as Joe and Barry both indicated, we will be having a summer school at our school this summer. So we'll have one section of kindergarten, first, second, and third grade students. It ends up being July 12th through August, or July 12th through August 12th, 4 days a week, 4 hours each day. So we're going to work on identifying the students that meet the criteria for that, and we'll be extending the invitations to our families early to mid-May. So we've got the initial plans in place. We have almost all of our staff members assigned and ready to go. So we will be all ready for those kids in the summer. Later this month, or later in May, we are going to be having our elementary track and field day. We call it track and field day, but it's really not track and field at all. Kids are not, they don't do a great job waiting in turns while one person is doing the 100 or the long jump. So we have just a lot of fun activities that the kids participate. So we work closely with Nurse Pryor and Nurse Krista to just determine what are the safe ways for us to participate in those activities. So we'll be outside. All of the classes will travel through all of the activities as a cohort, and kids will be allowed to take their masks off when they're outside participating, but when they come back in or when they're observing, the masks will go back on. So it'll be a great outdoor activity for our kiddos. And then the last piece, we are also continuing with our initial planning for the 21-22 school year. We have our schedule in place, and we are kind of in the late stages of doing our class list creation. So working on some of those pieces, but then also working to align some professional development opportunities for our staff next year. So we've got a good start on next year as well. So that concludes my updates. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Yeah, nice to hear that things are getting back to normal a little bit for you guys. That's good.
Bridget and John were at the school yesterday, or today actually, to interview our students, and they were, wow, this is pretty normal. It's not, other than the mess, it's like a regular school day around here. Yeah, it
That's
is.
great.
It's nice.
That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes the reports from the principals. I'll move on to hear from Mary Reader, business manager.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Last spring, the district went out for bread and milk bids or quotes, and the contracts were given to Kemp's and Panagold. As part of the specs, each time we go out, there's an option to extend that contract for an extra year. So we did contact Kemp's and Panagold, and they have both accepted the option for us to continue with them in the FY22 school year. So the next time we'll go out for quotes will be in the FY23 school year. And so we'll come to you with that next year. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Diane Johnson, Community Education Director.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. The summer brochure has gone to print. We're very happy with that. I expect it back to the post office in about a week. It's a much scaled down version. It's 16 pages rather than the normal 48 as a cost savings measure. The page flip edition will be on the website probably tomorrow. We got the link back from the printer for that today, so people can check it out in advance. One of the nice things about the 16-page brochure is because of how the printing process works, it is full color on every page. So it's going to be the first time ever that people will see full color on every single page. It's fun to see that. We did decide to open online registration last week already on the 21st of April for as many programs as we were able to open up at that point in time. In the first 24 hours, we got 432 registrations, which I'm guessing is probably a record for a 24-hour period. So people are most eager to get their kids signed up for summer activities. We have 9 ECFE classes that are running right now. Many of the classes are full, and we of course still remain under pod size limitations. Summer ECFE classes are open for registration at this point as well. Preschool for next year, our registration has now made it over the 100 children mark. I would expect that by the time the school year starts, we'll probably be in the neighborhood of 150. So preschool registration is looking strong. Early childhood screening, we're fully booked for the dates that are scheduled for the balance of the school year. And we are adding in incoming kindergarteners to that already full schedule as they contact us. And there will be additional days added in August to screen those students who are entering kindergarten and have not yet completed their screening. Tiger Kids Club has shut down their summer registration at this point at 190 students. We're going to put the K through 6th grade students at the elementary school this summer. That just gives us great access to the fields, to the green space, to other community activities that are happening on the district campus. And so we're excited to continue that partnership with the elementary. The pre-K students for Tiger Kids Club will remain in the community ed building this summer. And we are still hiring. So we are looking for adults to work in our summer program. And the job applications are, you can go to the district website and under HR and apply. Youth enrichment, we've got 28 planned activities this summer. Some of the ones that are popular based on registrations we've already gotten in are Birds Galore with Tamara Kowalski, Clay Camp, and Summertime in the Parks. At this point in time, we are still under pod size limitations. The state has indicated they're going to give us new guidance, and we are still waiting for that to see if we can increase our class sizes or not. Summer recreation, we've got over 50 recreation activities planned across all the sports that you can imagine. Registrations have been pouring in the door for those, especially for volleyball, for basketball, tennis, football. Camps have been very, very popular so far. Aquatics, the spring session of swim lessons is underway. Almost all of the classes are full. I think we only canceled one class and most of the rest are at capacity. We are still, of course, limited. We can only run 3 classes at a time because of the distancing requirements that we are under. And class sizes are a little bit smaller than normal also because of the distancing requirements. And Tiger Activity Center, things continue to go smoothly. A big project that is underway at the TAC is the company that we've used for the last several years for our membership software and our facility scheduling software was sold. And we've opted not to go with a new company. We've opted to transition to a company called RecDesk for the membership side of the software. And we're going to use our existing community ed registration software company for facility scheduling software. So staff is hard at work on training on those software packages and starting to prepare that transition at this point. Do you have any questions?
I don't. Anyone else have any questions today? No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the student school board representatives report. Bridget.
Hi, everybody. So essentially me and John finally went to visit the different schools. So I'm going to be talking about the elementary school. They are working on MCA testing right now, and kids are really, really enthusiastic about it because they do a lot of prep work to review and prepare for that. And they also are done with sweet multiplication, which is how it's their motivation to learn multiplication. And they, at the end of the month, get to have an ice cream party based on how well they did learning their multiplication facts. And they just had a virtual art and science fair. And kids essentially would make art projects more commonly than science projects. And now they're all entered into a big slideshow so that all of their classmates can see them throughout the whole school. And things seemed really, really normal around there. There are no field trips this year, but other than that, there are a lot of activities, especially in the kindergarten hallway, for all of the kids to be super active and still socially distanced. So it was really, really refreshing to be in the elementary school. And John's going to talk about intermediate.
Yeah, the intermediate's kind of got a whole plethora of stuff going on. This year, They started their new student council. So we talked to a few sixth graders that were in the student council and they enjoy doing it. They have a few dress up days planned already. So they're hard at work. We did stop by and check out the DIS store just to kind of get a feel for that, because I heard about that and thought that's a pretty cool thing they got going on there, and they're actually using real money and learning financial skills. So that's really, really cool. And kids, they said there's 20 some kids that are very invested in it. So that's nice to hear. And one last thing we talked to fourth graders about benchmark reading and their second year with it. And they said it's been a little wonky with the whole COVID situation, but they've gotten pretty used to it now. It's supposedly supposed to be a bit more vigorous, but they said they've got a handle on it. So it was really nice to see all the kids interacting and stuff while, like Bridget said, while still being social distancing. It was really nice to go and see the kids.
And then in high school, there's talk about the backpack situation, but that is being brought up by an underclassman. So as a senior, I'm kind of keeping my hands off of it. And we're all very excited for prom coming up. And although we're doing like a not school prom, we all have talked about it and we're all very understanding of the school's situation and how it was harder for them to put on a prom, but we appreciate that they had an effort in having a prom and then a grand march. And so I wanted to thank like Mr. Voigt and stuff for trying really hard, because we did notice that. And then we are also very, very excited for graduation. I am. We're excited that it's outdoors because I don't know, I think it'll just be different because, you know, it hasn't been different enough for us. So we're excited for graduation, and that's it.
Great. Thanks,
Any
you guys.
questions?
Any questions for you guys? No.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes student board reps report. We'll move on to board reports. We've got a number listed here tonight. We'll go through these. Masiko is the first one.
Yeah, I attended the normal Masiko meeting, pretty standard. The minutes are linked for anybody that wants to take a peek. We're continuing with our virtual tours of the various programs. So we looked at Sholin School for Girls and Village Ranch. So that was very helpful to a lot of the new board members that clearly haven't been able to go and tour the buildings in person. So that's been a nice tradition. And then talk through some of the staffing not changes, but hires that we've had. School psychologists are typically pretty hard to come by. So Janelle was very excited to share that there were 2 verbal offers that I'm assuming that we'll act on tomorrow night in the meeting for 2 school psychologists. And then I think the only other main noteworthy topic to say is Masiko actually decided to switch back to virtual board meetings versus in-person board meetings. As you can imagine, pandemic wise, we went to virtual, but being that there's 7 districts are so spread out geographically, I think that COVID has really highlighted for us that we can get our business done virtually for the most part and don't have to have people driving half hour, 45 minutes to attend board meetings. So we're going to try to go with a consistently virtual board meeting rhythm and then have a couple of in-person meetings a year for like our audit report and our budget meetings and things that maybe would require us to be a little bit more efficient in person. So anyways, more to come on that.
Thanks, Amy. Yep. Tech Center is the next item.
Hello. So I was able to finally get a full tour of the full building, which was great to see. I'm actually on the, excuse me, I'm on the facility committee. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done at Wright Tech as far as it's just a very old building. And you can really tell the difference in some of the sections that have been updated as far as like LED lighting and flooring and just painting of walls. It just needs a spruce up, I guess you could say. But there are some things that are coming to a point where there's an electrical panel that if it actually goes down, they can't rebuild it. It's so old. So these are just things on their long-term goals that, we're aware of. And this comes down to a vote I think we're gonna do later of amount of money that they ask for each year. And this amount is same as previous years. So it's definitely needed income. And on a nice note, each year the construction class builds a house and then they auction it off. And this year they received their highest bid ever. So they were super excited about that, and it was nice to see. That's it.
Super, thanks. Any questions for Jim? All right, professional development.
Yeah, so, I mean, MCAs, I think everybody covered those already, but we did talk about the fact that they were underway. And at that time, science had been completed. And then we also talked about the standards. So each of the teachers went through the standards for science. A lot of it, is kind of a similar story that we've heard, is that it just hasn't been a year to be able to focus on really getting into the next standards and doing that. It's been about, doing distance learning schooling. And so there is a plan for next year, as well as for language arts for the high school. Really, they're going to be way ahead of the ball here, as they don't have the new standards coming until 25, 26, but they definitely have plans next year to start looking at it and thinking about what will be changing, even though it seems slight. They're doing a good assessment of what the gaps may be and figuring out how we can cover those. That's it.
Okay, thanks. Any questions for Jenny? All right, District Advisory Committee.
Oh, I think I went during the wrong one.
Oh,
I'm so excited.
All right,
I
District
can do
Advisory.
I can give the professional development update. I attended that one.
Sparking.
That's why he's laughing, right? All right.
I attended for Sue, and so there was a few different topics that were covered. I think the main one was the LEA and the ESS nominations. So basically, they worked on figuring out how they were going to finalize the recipients of that. So they formed their committee, and they'll get to work on nominating who will receive those awards. And then there was a lot of conversations just around some of the training for the interventions. And it sounds like because K through 6 and then 7 through 12 might have to have different trainings because press is specific to K through 3. And so there was lots of conversations and dialogues around how to conduct this. So they have a couple of additional meetings coming up where they're going to spend some time figuring that out a little bit more and then come back with a different proposal. And then they started to talk through the budget and were able to approve the 2021-22 budget for professional development. So that's it.
Jamie.
Yep.
All right, next item then will be the Schools for Equity and Education.
I did Schools for Equity and Education. We met virtually last Friday. We heard from Live More, Screen Less, co-founders Marie Hampton and KK Myers. Live More, Screen Less, not Screenless, advocates for and promotes digital well-being for students and families. They talked about using electronics in a more purposeful and deliberate way for students and trying to get students off screens whenever possible. We also heard from the new Minnesota Department of Education Commissioner, Dr. Heather Mueller. She went through a list of the governor's initiatives and what they are heading into the end of the legislative session, discussed the budget priorities and targets. A lot of what was discussed really remains to be seen as the legislator continues to work out their final omnibus bill. And I'm thinking that's end of next month that we'll get that out. And then all of that will make a little bit more sense. Matt, are you on there with us?
I was not, but the interviewing.
Oh.
All right, thanks, Rachel. Any questions for Rachel? Safe Schools is next.
Safe Schools also met. They discussed the improvements on Highway 12, roundabout that's going to be put in at Tiger Drive and Highway 30 this summer. ongoing discussion about student mental health and the uptick in general mental health cases throughout the county due to COVID. There was, as there's been all year, a lot of conversation around COVID, the numbers and what's going on at the school and the county and the state level. I think probably the biggest takeaway from the meeting is that families that are struggling, whether it be with mental health, drugs, or financial issues, especially during COVID, should be reaching out to the county for resources as a first step. And at the school level, we will continue to work with those students who are struggling to get to school and stay engaged and keep on top of their work.
Thank you. And then the last on the agenda for board reports is DASA.
And DASA held its regular monthly meeting. This was my first time with this group. So there's a little bit of a learning curve for me. Much of the meeting focused on their upcoming summer sessions and projects. They discussed what their building and operations are and the financial outlook for those repairs. They had some discussion on what repairs they wanted to prioritize and how that looks with a grant they recently received called the Mighty Ducks Grant and how they plan to use that money.
Excellent, thank you. All right, that concludes our board reports for the evening. And we'll move on to old business. We've got a number of policies for second read here. So next item is to approve the second read of policy 613, graduation requirements due to substantive and legal reference changes. Do I have a motion to approve that policy?
Jenny, I'll make that motion.
I'll go ahead and second it. I have a motion by Jenny and a second by Lisa. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Mr. Black,
Aye.
Ms. Roser,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Ms. Segwin,
Aye.
Mr. Gierke,
Aye.
Ms. Rosenall,
Aye.
Ms. Deppa.
Aye.
Policy 613 is approved. Next item is to approve the second read of policy 614, school district testing plan and procedure due to substantive and legal reference changes. Do I have a motion to approve policy 614?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Black, second by Deppa. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Ms. Rosenall,
Aye.
Ms. Deppa,
Aye.
Ms. Segwin,
Aye.
Mr. Gierke,
Aye.
Mr. Black,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Ms. Roser.
Aye.
Policy 614 is approved. Next item is to approve the second read of policy 614F, district test security procedures due to substantive changes. I have a motion to approve policy 614F.
Jenny, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Jenny, second by Corey. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Ms. Segwin,
Aye.
Mr. Gierke,
Aye.
Ms. Roser,
Aye.
Ms. Deppa,
Aye.
Mr. Black,
Aye.
Ms. Rosenall.
Aye.
Policy 614 is approved. Next item is to approve the second read of policy 615, testing accommodations, modifications, and exemptions for IEPs, section 504 plans, and LEP students due to substantive and legal reference changes. Do I have a motion to approve policy 615?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Corey. I'll go ahead and second. Motion by Black, second by Segwin. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Ms. Segwin,
Aye.
Mr. Black,
Aye.
Ms. Roser,
Aye.
Ms. Deppa,
Aye.
Mr. Gierke,
Aye.
Ms. Rosenall,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson.
All right, policy 615 is approved. Next item on the agenda is to approve second read of policy 619, staff development for standards due to substantive and legal reference changes. I have a motion to approve policy 619.
Deppa can motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Deppa, second by Black. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Mr. Gearke,
Aye.
Ms. Segwin,
Aye.
Mr. Black,
Aye.
Ms. Depa,
Aye.
Ms. Rosno,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Ms. Roser.
Aye.
Policy 619 is approved. All right, that's it for old business. We'll move on to new business. The first item under new business is to approve the Wright Technical Center Long-Term Facilities Maintenance Resolution.
Yep, we talked about this at last month's work session, and Wright Tech Center, they have not increased the amount that they're requesting from the member districts for the last 2 years, but our portion in the FY23 school year will be $13,310.
Yeah, we discussed this last month. All right, do I have a motion to approve the Wright Technical Center Long-Term Facilities Maintenance Resolution?
Jamie, I'll make that motion.
Gerke, second.
A motion by Rose now, a second by Gerke. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Ms. Roser,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Black,
Aye.
Ms. Rosno,
Aye.
Ms. Depa,
Aye.
Ms. Segwin,
Aye.
Mr. Gearke.
Aye.
All right, that resolution is approved. Next item on the agenda is to approve school food service prime vendor. Mary talked about this, or we talked about this in our work session, yeah.
Correct. So we finished our first 5-year contract with Upper Lake Foods. We went out for new quotes this coming year for the FY22 school year, and it's a combination between Delano, Howard Lake, Waverly, Winston, and St. Michael, Albertville. And we are recommending to remain with Upper Lakes due to product availability as well as pricing.
Was Bimbo's Bakery considered?
That's the part of your bread bid. And we're sticking with Panagold right now.
Just checking.
I
It's
tell you.
important to not leave Bimbo out. All right, do I have a motion to approve the school food service prime vendor?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Courtney.
Corey. I'll go ahead and second it. Motion by Black, second by Segwin. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Ms. Depa,
Aye.
Mr. Black,
Aye.
Ms. Rosno,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Ms. Segwin,
Aye.
Mr. Gearke,
Aye.
Ms. Roser.
Aye.
All right. Food service prime vendor is approved. Next item is to approve the third school ground lease agreement. This is the DASA one, right?
Yes, this
Yep.
is the DASA one for them to be able to build their chillers on the outside of the building.
Yep, we talked
Needed
about
to
this one.
amend the lease agreement.
Yep. We have a motion to approve the lease amendment. We have a motion by Depa. I'll go ahead and second it. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Mr. Black,
Aye.
Ms. Roser,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Ms. Segwin,
Aye.
Mr. Gearke,
Aye.
Ms. Rosno,
Aye.
Ms. Depa.
Aye.
All right, the lease amendment is approved. Next item is to approve the first and only read of policy 506, student discipline due to non-substantive changes. Do I have a motion to approve?
Jamie, I'll make that motion.
Corey, second.
Motion by Jenny, second by Corey. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Ms. Rosno,
Aye.
Ms. Depa,
Aye.
Ms. Segwin,
Aye.
Mr. Gearke,
Aye.
Mr. Black,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Ms. Roser.
Aye.
Policy first read of policy 506 is approved. Next item is the first read of policy 620, credit for learning due to substantive and legal reference changes. I have a motion to approve first read of policy 620. Daniel, second. Motion by Black, second by Rosenau. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll move to a roll call vote.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Ms. Segwin,
Aye.
Mr. Gearke,
Aye.
Ms. Roser,
Aye.
Ms. Deppa,
Aye.
Mr. Black,
Aye.
Ms. Rosenau.
Aye.
First read of 620 is approved. Last item on the agenda is to approve the first read of policy 624, online learning options due to substantive and legal reference changes. Do I have a motion to approve the first read of policy 624? Daniel, make that motion.
Johnson will second.
We'll go with Johnson, even though I technically heard Rachel first.
Oh.
By Rosenau, a second by Johnson. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Ms. Segwin,
Aye.
Mr. Black,
Aye.
Ms. Roser,
Aye.
Ms. Deppa,
Aye.
Mr. Gearke,
Aye.
Ms. Rosenau,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson.
Aye.
All right, first read of policy 624 is approved. That was the last item on the agenda. So therefore we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Night.
Have a good.
Thank you. Good night.